The mission of WBS is to equip shepherds and theologians through transforming graduate theological education. Some seminaries are big box seminaries, manufacturing and marketing pastors. At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we handcraft shepherds and theologians for Christ's church. Wesley Biblical Seminary, life-on-life formation for Great Commission impact.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio
and Urban Family Talk.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media
and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk, as I do my best to help everybody make their way home at the end of a busy work day. Most people, I want to say every person. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III. I am joined by the full J Squared contingent, Mr. Jeff Reed to my left, Mr. Jason Tross to my right, Hannah Farah, mommy, in the screening room with the waving baby. Man, I'm still amazed by that ultrasound. If you didn't hear the story yet, Hannah, our call screener, is expecting a baby girl. Is that okay for me to say too? I guess it's too late. I said it now. And this actually ties into what I'm about to say right now. And this was not a plan. We were just talking in the studio before we come on the air as we normally do. And Hannah whipped out her cell phone with her ultrasound pictures on it that included a video. And you see a crisp digital image of this beautiful baby girl. And all of a sudden you see a hand pop up and wave in the direction of where what will be. I'm watching the video towards what would appear to be the camera lens. And then Hannah says, and you know what's so interesting about that, Abe? I was talking to her at that exact moment. I mean, if that is not an argument in favor of ultrasounds, I don't know what is. I mean, this is, again, nothing contrived, nothing planned. We're just talking, and it just so happened to happen. A coincidence, if you believe in coincidence. While we are in the middle of our campaign of encouraging people to partner with us as we join the Ministry of Preborn to provide ultrasounds free of charge to abortion-minded mothers. Just like Hannah, and thank God Hannah has never been abortion-minded, but she's able to celebrate the reality of her baby girl, which her baby girl is here already, by the way. She's here. You know, she will make a transition from one place, from inside to outside, but she's here. But Hannah is able already to enjoy motherhood. Man, that's powerful. That is powerful. And we are, that is American Family Radio, Urban Family Talk, and the Ministry of Preborn, we are appealing to you to aid us in offering the exact same moment that Hannah had to women all across the country. The unfortunate reality is I ran across a story, thankfully to one of our Hamilton Corner listeners, and I got to just be a sister in the faith that I've known before there was any such thing called the Hamilton Corner, where she shared a story with me that really reflects the demographic winter, how right now in the United States of America, that the reproductive rates in our nation are below replacement, 16% below replacement. Because the unfortunate reality is that our country has bought the lie of feminism, which is a repetition of what was offered in the garden, where you had the serpent offering to Eve something that Eve embraced as being better than what God had provided. And in spite of the fact that God has exclusively and uniquely handcrafted, I'm telling you, I get excited talking about the created order when the Bible talks about God made Adam, but he said he formed Eve. Got poetic with it, was intentional in crafting every detail. And when I look at my wife, I say, he sure did. He formed her. Like Adam, I'm start spitting raps. Because she comes from Isha. But getting women to reject the exclusive capacity instead of saying, hey, you know what? We need to be more like men. That sure is liberty. Rejecting the fact that, you know what? There's something that God has made us to be and to do that men can't do or be no matter how much they try. Regardless of how many, unions in Britain prohibit medical health professionals from using the term pregnant woman because they want to be inclusive, you see, and say pregnant people. Man, that's just foolishness. The facts are only women can have babies. And because of our society and many things that are happening with the ridiculous status of our legal framework, that we have embraced the idea that killing a child for convenience is an option. And there are many people who are in difficult circumstances that are in the throes of having to make a decision because our laws make it possible for them to do. The statistics show us that 80% of women who are those that are abortion-minded, not just women in general, but 80% of abortion-minded women, when they have the opportunity to see their babies on an ultrasound, they make the decision to allow the baby to continue living. You heard what I said there? Continue living. Why? Because the baby is already alive once conceived. Would you join us in offering these free ultrasounds to women all across the country? If you are willing to do so, please call 877-616-2396. That number again is 877-616-2396, or you can give securely online at afr.net. That is afr.net. And I just have to say a shout out. Thank you, Sister Celeste, for the story you sent me. I read it, and I appreciate you providing that for me. All right. We'll now turn to Joshua chapter 4. We don't have a lot of time to dilly-dally on the outside, so let's go right on in. Joshua chapter 4, verses 4 through 7. If you recall, Joshua is the successor to Moses, who has ascended to leadership in the nation of Israel and is the one who brings the second generation of Israelites into the promised land. And look what Joshua said in the process of doing so. When the Lord unfolds his word to us, he does so with great intentionality to convey truth to us. Look at this. Verse 4. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it passed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. A memorial forever. All throughout the scriptures, you will see the Lord instructing the nation of Israel to create memorials, to create sources of remembrance, saying, remember, remember, remember. And if you notice, in this particular passage, the purpose of the memorial was not to serve the individuals present at that time. No, no, no. The purpose was so that the descendants, the offspring, the generations down the line may recognize what God had performed on behalf of his people. The purpose of the memorial was to preserve a Yahweh fidelity, to preserve a cognizance of the Lord's power, to preserve an awe for God for multiple generations. Similarly, I would encourage you, especially those of us who have children, that we tell of the goodness of the Lord, that we erect memorials so that our generations down the line will not only enjoy the fruit of being the descendants of Yahweh worshipers, of Christ followers, but they also may be apprised of the particularities of our walk. In this instance, this was one where though the first generation of Israelites walked through the wilderness, walked through the Red Sea, this younger generation, some of them weren't even alive when that happened. So in this instance, they are now going through the Jordan River, where the Lord caused the waters of the Jordan to roll back to allow the Israelites to cross the Jordan and enter the promised land on dry ground. But he did so after the Ark of the Covenant entered first, which is why I think it's critically important for us to comply with what Deuteronomy 6 says, that we shall speak of the love that we have for the Lord our God as we walk by the way and when we lay down on our beds in our homes, that we noise abroad, that we communicate to our children how good God has been to us. It also is a communication of the central role that remembering your history plays into maintaining faithfulness to that history generations down the line. The purpose, the Bible tells us, I'm going to read verse 6 again, if I can find it again. That this may be a sign among you when your children ask in time to come, because they're going to ask. When your children ask in time to come, what do these stones mean? Why do you have this here? One of the things that I've done, the Lord has moved me and my family to put on the wall in our house above the fireplace our family mission pointing to Scripture, so that when our children age, they say, Daddy, why is that on the wall? What do you mean to be poured out like a drink offering and serving the Lord's purposes in your time? What does that mean? It gives an opportunity to convey the reality how the Lord takes boys and makes them into men of God. Not only talking about the successes, but the pits and the valleys, as well as the mountaintop experiences. The reality of a people being tethered to the historical faithfulness of our God is incumbent upon every single individual. I've shared before that is the thrust of Psalm 23. When David says, yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they accompany me. How can a rod, how can a staff aid a David in the valley of the shadow of death? Because the staff contains an up-to-date record of the faithfulness of God on David's behalf. So though there's no person there with him, though there's no one around to give him encouragement, he can look at his staff and see, wait a minute, look how faithful God has been to me. And this is why I say all the time, even in your individual lives, one of the things that the enemy tries to do is to sever you from your personal history of God's faithfulness, so that you approach current trials and difficult circumstances as if they are just a Mount Everest of difficulty. Man, I don't know how I'm going to get over this thing. When the reality is, if we would keep our real-time record of the Lord's faithfulness, it would be difficult for us to become dismayed. Because we recognize, I got a record of a lion going down. A lion tried to step in the ring with me, put on the gloves, put them off. And then there was a bear that came around here talking slick. The bear was talking greasy toward me. And the Lord delivered him both into my hands. And this day, King Saul, y'all around there shaking, knees knocking because you see a big man. There ain't no such thing as a man bigger than my God. How dare this uncircumcised Philistine spout off his ability to overwhelm the Lord of hosts? And I love how David says that. The Lord of hosts, which is a reference to the Lord's generalship over an angelic host of war-making angels. David is saying, man, if the Lord wanted to, we could win this battle without even throwing a blow, if the Lord wanted it to go down that way. The same type of sentiment when Elisha had his servant boy. The servant boy was shook. Elisha, don't you see all of these Syrians surrounding us? Elisha, it's early in the morning. Why are you still asleep? It is a fearful thing to have a Syrian army coming up against us. Elisha said, Lord, open this boy's eyes. Open his eyes, that he may see that there are more that are with us than that are with them. And then the Lord opened the boy's eyes, and he saw the hills that surrounded the Syrian army filled, what he said. He said, the chariots and the horsemen of Israel. Oh, I'm telling you, memorials, brothers and sisters, are something that we use as human beings. Why? Because we're frail. The Lord knows we're prone to forget. You know, and even in our personal lives. Oh, man, how are we going to get out of this one? I'll tell you how. The same way you got out of the last one. It wasn't a hook or a crook. It was a person. Oh, God. Oh, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, this kind of talk is the reason why I tell you I'm not afraid of the day that we're living in. This time where darkness is mounting and people are acting they don't know what a man is and a woman is. Where you have the American Psychological Association saying that traditional masculinity is a mental pathology. I'm not afraid of that. Why? Because the Lord placed me in this time period. The Lord placed you in this time period. All that is necessary is for us to have a trajectory and a perspective adjustment. And I would suggest memorials would aid you in that. Think about where you were when the Lord invaded your sin-filled life and broke the power of sin over your life to allow you to invite you to become born again. If he can do that, what can't he do? I say all the time, the greatest miracle that any of us will ever experience is when the power of sin is broken over our lives and the Lord takes this stony heart of rebellion and turns it into a heart of flesh. And then when we become responsive to the grace of God, I'm telling you, naturally speaking, I wasn't a very, I didn't cry very much. But man, after the Lord invaded my life, you can't hardly sing about the blood of Jesus without my face getting wet. Because when I think about Jesus and all he's done for me, oh my goodness. When I think about where I grew up and what God went through, how he went through my mother growing up in the Desire Projects in New Orleans and my dad growing up sleeping on the dirt floor in Houston, Texas, and for the gospel to reach me. Oh, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, if the Lord can save my soul and if he can save your soul, what can't he do? So we might as well build a memorial and get our praise on in the process.
What the Bible says can be trusted. Hi, I'm Matt Staver with Freedom's Call. New discoveries have recently suggested the biblical city of Sodom was hit by an exploding meteor. This is the same city the Bible says was destroyed by fire and brimstone because of sin. After 13 years of archaeological study, these findings have now been presented. Samples from the site show that an extremely hot, explosive event demolished about 200 square miles. People, towns, and even the soil were totally destroyed. Of course, I'm never surprised when external evidence proves the validity of the Bible. I want to invite you to join Anita and me this year on a tour of the Holy Land. You will be amazed how the Bible will come alive in new and exciting ways. You will see historical and spiritual sites and hear from amazing speakers, and your life will never be the same. Visit cidisrael.org/tour. That's cidisrael.org/tour.
Hey, I'm Brant. So there's this guy named Jordan. He's a healthy guy. He's a dad of 6, and he works as a guide in Alaska. And he goes to the doctor, true story, he goes to the doctor and he's diagnosed with cancer, stage 4. And here's the thing. He had switched earlier from medical insurance to Medishare, where Christians share each other's medical bills. So the question for Jordan and his wife, Jenny, was, is this actually going to work?
Our medical bills exceeded $160,000. Medishare members shared all our bills.
And it was about more than just the money, too. This is a real community.
Medishare is a family, a group of people that stick with you through the hardest times of your life. I just don't know how I could have done it without Medishare.
It's so worth looking into. There's a reason this is growing so fast. So if you want to find out more, here is a number for you. 855-PSALM-23. That's 855-PSALM-23.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. The American Psychological Association says that biblical masculinity is a form of mental illness. The APA has issued a set of guidelines based on the premise that traditional masculinity is harmful. By traditional masculinity, they mean qualities such as stoicism, the ability to face adversity without collapsing, competitiveness, which is one of the main drivers of career success, dominance and aggression, which are traits that enabled American men to achieve independence, free the slaves, and turn back the Nazi menace. The APA is part of the dark crusade to utterly feminize men. But as I explain in my book for fathers, the Boy to Man book, biblical masculinity means using masculine strength to stand for the truth, protect the weak, and to provide for and lead our families. Maybe it's the people who think this is toxic who are the ones with a mental disorder.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 1:05 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here at American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. I was going to let this go, but the ridiculousness just continues to spew. And part of this is because President Trump visited the southern border in McAllen, Texas. And I have some audio I want to share with you from that visit. But before he did so, the infamous Jim Acosta from the Crescent News Network, I don't know what he thought he was doing. He went to McAllen, Texas in anticipation of President Trump's arrival and wanted to record his own little video there with some audio that I'm going to share with you. And I guess he thought he was really socking it to the president with this one, but he accidentally ends up bolstering President Trump's argument. Please play clip number 1, Jason.
Here are some of the steel slats that the president's been talking about right here. As you can see, yes, you can see through these slats to the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border. But as we're walking along here, we're not seeing any kind of imminent danger. There are no migrants trying to rush toward this fence here in the McAllen, Texas area. As a matter of fact, there are some other businesses behind me along this highway. There's a gas station, Burger King, and so on. But no sign of the national emergency that the president has been talking about. As a matter of fact, it's pretty tranquil down here.
Yeah, Jim. It's pretty tranquil down there. I'm sorry, this dude's an idiot. It's pretty tranquil down there, Jim, because there's a fence there. You just said the steel slats right here where the steel slats are. It's pretty peaceful. I don't see any emergency at this border. It's like, yeah, it's because there's a fence there. Oh, my God. That's kind of like me walking in my house saying, man, I've locked my doors and put my alarm on when I left home, and there are no burglars in my house. And you said there was a crisis in my house. Like, dude, the place where you have the fence is probably the place where you have the border, the barriers, not where you're going to have. I'm going to tell you, like, I'm going to do it like Mama Lockett used to do it back in New Orleans. Lord, bless that baby. Not baby, bless that baby, Lord. Bless that baby. He a little touched. He a little touched in the head. Oh, Lord. Now, and I'm sharing this with you as it unfolded chronologically, because Jim Acosta released his video, and he has been mocked incessantly all across social media. Then after Acosta's video came out, President Trump went to the border, and literally none of this was planned. None of this was contrived. There were some Border Patrol agents there just informing the president, Senator Cornyn and Senator Ted Cruz, about what's happening on the border, and some very interesting information came out. Please play clip number 4, Jason.
Yesterday we had 450 apprehensions, Mr. President. Out of that, 133.
So yesterday alone, you had
450. Out of that, 133 from countries other than the Central American countries and Mexico. India, we apprehended some Pakistanis, we added some folks from Romania, on and on and
How
on.
many Pakistanis yesterday?
2 yesterday.
Chief, can I get you to make that point? Because it's not just Central America and Mexico. People from all over the world exploit the vulnerabilities in our border.
Perhaps you could tell them exactly.
How many different countries?
So far this sector has apprehended folks from 41 different countries. Just yesterday we apprehended 133 people from countries other than Central America and Mexico. That includes individuals from India, Pakistan, China, Romania, Ecuador, Nicaragua, on and on and on.
Now, yesterday, folks, this is just yesterday, while Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they're having their press conferences and all these things that are happening. Yesterday, the Border Patrol apprehended 450 people on the border. 133 of them came from countries that were not South and Central America. Are you 100 yesterday? 133. They came from Pakistan, India, Romania. Do I need to remind you where bin Laden was finally found? Pakistan. I mean, and I can't believe some of the things I've been sharing on social media. I've had people asking questions of me like this. Well, Mr. Hamilton, what exactly do you expect a border wall to accomplish? Are you serious? What do you think a wall does? What do you think a wall does? I mean, this people, and because of politics, folks, because of partisanship and people's like or dislike for President Trump, people would act like they don't have any sense. Oh, geez, I don't know why I have a door in my house. I mean, what does that accomplish? But before I respond, I want you to listen to the Border Patrol agent to explain what happens when a wall is employed. Please play clip number 2.
Part of our area is covered with some fencing on our east side. That accounts for about 6% of our traffic. Where we have no fencing, over 90% of our traffic occurs in those areas.
Okay, folks, I mean, you don't have to say any more. That's it. That's it. And we never even spoke before this, right? I never told you to say that.
No, sir.
I should have, except he said it perfectly, all right? Look, this is common sense. They need a barrier, they need a wall. If you don't have it, it's going to be nothing but hard work and grueling problems. And by the way, and death.
Okay? Do you understand now? What exactly will a wall accomplish, Abraham? The Border Patrol agent just told you, on our border in McAllen, we have some areas that have a barrier. 55 miles of barrier. Only 6% of the traffic of people attempting to cross illegal into our country germinates in the area where they have a border wall, a fence, a barrier. 90%, I feel like, do I need to get Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street out here? 90% of the traffic of illegal border entrance take place, this Border Patrol agent is telling you, in the area where we don't have a barrier. Am I the crazy one here? What is a fence going to accomplish? Then leave all your windows open and leave your door up on your front door. And then go home and ask yourself, what do your doors and windows accomplish? I mean, it's ridiculous. 90% of the traffic of illegal entrant attempts occur in the areas where they don't have fencing, in the McAllen border specifically. Only 6%. You know that place where Jim Acosta was? There's only 6% traffic there. Now, I'm not asserting that a border barrier is going to stem the tide of illegal immigration totally, nor am I asserting that it will eliminate all illegal entrants from the southern border. But what I'm telling you is that it's certainly going to significantly cut it down. I mean, good gracious. No one has said that by putting up the fence, all illegal alien traffic will cease. But it will aid in significantly diminishing that traffic. Don't we understand this? Can we get outside of politics just for 1 second, act as if Donald Trump is not president? Oh, because then if we do that, then we might have to play some audio from Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the list goes on. We know this, folks. Let's stop playing politics and get down to brass taxes. Of course, everything is not going to end with the fence, but it certainly is going to help. Jeez Louise. And no one is saying we want to shut down immigration. All we're saying is that we want to put a fence up to control it. The age-old question, when people visit your home, wouldn't you rather them knock on the front door? Would you rather them knock on the front door and you determine who gets to enter and when? Or would you rather them to try to take it upon themselves to enter that window on the side? Common sense. Folks, I didn't even want to talk about this today, but Jim Acosta made me do it. Moving on. And I alluded to this yesterday, and I want to get to this during this segment. I said before, there are people that are suggesting that constitutionalists like myself are picking on people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but she's young and she hasn't had time yet. You're just picking on her unfairly. And I'm like, nah, you people are telling me that she's an up-and-coming rock star among the Democrat Party. In fact, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee told me, of course, he didn't say it to me directly, but he said it in a public speech, actually in a radio interview, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represents the future of the Democrat Party. Please play clip number 6.
What's this tell you about where the Democratic Party is going today?
Well, my daughters, I have 3 kids, 2 of whom are daughters. One just graduated college, one is in college, and they were both texting me about their excitement over Alexandria because she represents the future of our party.
She represents the future of our party. The same people who want to tell me that you should take it easy on Cortez, and it's really not about her. I really want to discuss the ideas that she's advocating for, because the reality is, folks, that an overwhelming majority, I would assert, of Democratic Party members agree with her ideas. I'm not talking about her as a person. I'm talking about her ideas. She is floating this notion of a Green New Deal, and almost at least 4 I can name off the top of my head would be presidential hopefuls on the Democrat side of the aisle have endorsed her Green New Deal. That will be Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, to name a few. 40 House Democrats have signed off on her proposal for a Green New Deal. And I heard her talk about it, but I wanted to wait until the policy positions were offered in print so I could read them and digest them. And I want to talk about that a little bit with you right now. Because when you hear Green New Deal, don't you think, wait a minute, this is going to be things talking about carbon emissions and that kind of thing? Oh, no, it's far more than that. But I want you to hear for yourself how she describes this so-called Green New Deal and how she plans to pay for it. Please play clip number 7.
You're talking about zero carbon emissions, no use of fossil fuels within 12 years?
That is the goal. It's ambitious. And
how is that possible? You're talking about everybody having to drive an electric car?
It's going to require a lot of rapid change that we don't even conceive as possible right now. What is the problem with trying to push our technological capacities to the furthest extent possible.
This would require, though, raising taxes.
There's an element where, yeah, people are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes.
Do you have a specific on the tax rate?
You know, you look at our tax rates back in the 60s, and when you have a progressive tax rate system, your tax rate, you know, let's say from $0 to $75,000 may be 10% or 15%, etc. But once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
Now, did she just describe tax policy by saying the tippy tops? The tippy tops, folks. Do I need to bring Bernie and Ert back out again? I might need Grover and the Cookie Monster for this one. Folks, this is utterly ridiculous. She has a degree in economics. That's the thing that blows my mind. It shouldn't blow my mind because what they're teaching now and passing off as economics is not economics. First and foremost, her statement about paying your fair share assumes people are not paying already. That's first. Secondarily, her suggestion that the top tax rates reach 60 to 70% would absolutely shut down our economy. It's a fact. Alan Greenspan has said it. Economists have said it. I am not an economist, nor do I play one on television, but I can do math. I can do math. She is literally suggesting complete termination of the entire existing energy sector in 10 years. Think about that. And you care about jobs in the economy? I mean, the hundreds of thousands of people who work in oil and natural gas and coal, gone in 10 years. Gone. Just, I don't need any more. That'll be done with. And I would just cut to the chase because I'm running out of time. Taxing the top wage earners at 60 to 70%. That's only going to get you about $720 billion. Her Medicare for All universal health care proposal will cost $32 trillion over 10 years. You're not even scratching the surface. And why am I sharing that with you? To reveal the ugly truth. To do these things that these people are talking about, it's not going to come from villainizing the rich, attacking the rich. In order to accomplish remotely close to what they want to accomplish, they will have to raise taxes on everybody. Because there's a select few wealthy people, and it's not enough money to accomplish all of these objectives. Man, I'm running out of show because I have so much I want to get to. One of the proposals in her Green New Deal is to upgrade every residential and industrial building for state-of-the-art energy efficiency, comfort, and safety. Which means every home will have to be upgraded to solar energy and wind energy. How much do you think that's going to cost? At a minimum, $1 trillion. At a minimum. She's proposing eliminating greenhouse gas emissions from the manufacturing, agricultural, and other industries, including by investing in local-scale agriculture in communities across the country. And this is one of the dumbest portions of the proposals. I'm just being honest, because this is not going to affect a scintilla of the carbon emissions around the world. India and China are emitting even more. Folks, this is just not bad ideas. This is el estúpido. I'm just telling you how it is. I'm not saying, her ideas are terrible. Her ideas are terrible. She also has a proposal in this Green New Deal to assure everyone a federal jobs guarantee and to assure a living wage. It's ridiculous, folks. It's utterly ridiculous. And again, I want to make sure I drive this point home. This effort to villainize the rich is an effort that is doomed to fail. And is also a deceptive effort because there's no way that you remotely approach accomplishing these objectives by only taxing people who make over $10 million. The math just does not add up. $720 billion over a 10-year time period. That's what taxing the rich, the top wage earners at 60 or 70% over $10 million. That's what that gets you. That's not a drop in the bucket for what they want to do, which is, once again, the bait and switch that regressives do. They sell you this one dream when all along their plan completely is to tax everybody, because the only way you remotely approach any of this is if you expand the tax base from which you're extracting more money from. So listen, when they say tax the rich, they don't mean tax the rich. They mean tax you. You listening to this program. And all of that stuff may sound good on the surface. I mean, free stuff. But as my son says, Daddy, there's no such thing as free. Where do people get that from?
The Ministry of Preborn meets abortion-minded women right where they are and reaches them with the love of Christ.
We showed her love, and we accept her right where she's at. If the baby's saved by what we do here, and the mother's life is spared from the devastation of abortion, that definitely helps them in this life. But this is not all that there is. We want our clients to know about Jesus.
I got to see his heartbeat. It kind of just looked like a little butterfly in a bubble. The Lord gave me that baby, and he gave me that baby for a reason.
The Ministry of Preborn runs and leads Christian pregnancy centers all over the country, helping abortion-minded mothers to choose life for their unborn babies. To find out more about how you can help save a baby's life, go to preborn.com or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 and say baby. All gifts are tax deductible.
What does productivity mean for the Christian? This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. Productivity can seem a subject more suited for business people than for Christians. But the Bible is clear, especially in Jesus' parable of the talents in Matthew 25, that God expects His followers to use everything He gives us to advance His kingdom. In his book, Do More Better, Pastor Tim Challies shares a plan for Christians to become more productive, not merely for self-improvement, but rather for God's glory and the good of others. Who wouldn't want to hear God say, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Hear an interview with Tim Challies at thechristianworldview.org.
And then tune in this weekend for another topic that will sharpen your worldview.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes with news and commentary next. The other day, I was on a packed subway car heading into the Fox News corner of the world. At one stop, a mother boarded the train, feeding a baby in one hand while juggling a toddler and a giant baby stroller with the other. I watched in disgust as grown men slumped in their seats, refusing to budge. So I stepped in, offered to look after the giant baby stroller while another passenger assisted with the toddler. But not a single man offered up his seat. It was inconsiderate, downright shameful. Look, I'm old school. I was raised to say yes, ma'am, and hold the door open for ladies. I know it may not be politically correct. I know some will call me a sexist pig. Others will say I'm infected with toxic masculinity. But it still does not sway my opinion that when a lady steps into a packed subway car, the men who are sitting should stand up and offer their seat. It's the manly thing to do, America. I'm Todd Starnes.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net and urbanfamilytalk.com. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. We will open the phone lines this segment. So anything we've opined on today, the building memorial stones, the ridiculousness at the border, on the southern border, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her absolute lunacy, is all fair game, and you are welcome to call 888-589-8840. Once again, the number to call is 888-589-8840. Just once again to underscore the idiocy of Cortez's proposals. I mean, just talking about wind and solar energy. Right now, people who take advantage of wind and solar energy, first of all, have enjoy very favorable subsidies from the government. But putting that aside for the moment, right now, wind and solar consumers use conventional energy that is coal-powered, natural gas-powered, and fossil fuel-powered as a backup. Why is that? Because the sun ain't out all the time. And the wind is not always blowing. So in those instances, they resort to conventional mechanisms of energy to provide for them. But if you listen to AOC, and we no longer have any jobs with oil, natural gas, coal, etc., guess what? We're going to look like North Korea in certain times. And anybody who has looked at the satellite images of North and South Korea, you see South Korea lit up at nighttime, and North Korea is dead. It's dark. You see no lights. None. And on top of that, man, I could stay on this for 3 hours. She acts as if you put a 60 to 70% tax on the wealthiest people in America, you think they're going to stay here for that tax? One thing that wealthy people are very good at doing is keeping their money. This was tried in France, folks, recently. Junior Macron and his folks tried to impose a heavy tax on France's wealthiest constituents. And guess what they did? They moved. Ain't nobody got time for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And here's one of the major points I wanted to communicate to you. I am sick and tired. And this ties into the whole idea of understanding the memorials, understanding our history. How do we get to where we've gotten? How do we get here? I am sick and tired of people presenting American history and presenting wealth acquisition as if it is inherently evil. My wife and I were watching this show, which, man, we've practically given up on television. I'm just telling you candidly. And it was a clean, supposedly a clean show, which it was. It was a clean show, but I cut it off because of the messaging. I'm not going to spend my downtime being propagandized. It was a show where you had a top-level neurosurgeon, a top-level neurosurgeon, and he performed brain surgeries. And he was the best in the entire world, was known to be the best, and had a very lucrative practice. But you know what? He was considered not to be a good person until he started providing free services at the local free clinic. Now, this man is saving people's lives by performing brain surgeries nobody else in the world can do and generating a profit from it, running a lucrative practice where he has hundreds of people who he has employed, but he's considered to be a bad guy. He can't be good until he's doing things for free. And that's continuing the propaganda that, rich people are bad, poor people are good. You know, when the Bible tells us we're not supposed to be partial to the rich nor to the poor. It's ridiculous. And I was also doing a little bit of reading, history as I always do, because I'm also sick and tired of people trying to present America as if America is exclusively and uniquely wicked, and all the other nations around the world are beneficial. Did you know Japan was a nation that historically had voluntarily isolated itself from the rest of the world? And then in 1854, America was one of the mechanisms by which Japan joined the world. And one of the things that happened, there was a man by the name of Commodore Matthew Perry who gave a gift to Japan, and it was a train. And initially, when the train was given, it was about to start up, the local Japanese, this was in 1854, the local population was afraid of the train. Afraid of the train. Where they were running from it, think it was going crazy. And then after a while, they realized it was, a locomotive, and they began to learn about it. And don't you know, less than 100 years later, Japan was able to construct a train, a bullet train that outpaced anything that America had at the time. But America was instrumental in bringing Japan out of its self-imposed isolation and laying a foundation for it to become an economic power that is today. It is through that one encounter that led Japan to begin to investigate American ingenuity, learn about American history, to where they began to celebrate people like Abraham Lincoln and Benjamin Franklin as heroes, even surpassing their own Japanese heroes. It became so prominent in Japan where they even considered making English their national language because they were studying English. Soon thereafter, the Japanese started doing other inventions, creating things like the Nikon camera and the Canon camera, and beginning to engage in the automotive industry. And now they're flourishing. Well, you know what? The United States of America was instrumental in bringing that about. And I'm tired of people trying to demonize America as if America is exclusively wicked and as if there is nothing unique and redeemable about America on the positive side. I've heard people say that, where the source of America, it's America became what she is on the backs of slavery and on the backs of Africans imported to America through slavery. Assuming that's true, okay, let's do some digging. Do you know how many total Africans were transported to the New World? Total? Do you know? Before you pop off? 12.5 million total. 12.5 million. You want to know where the majority of them went? The majority of them went to the Caribbean and to South America. America only had about 450,000 total slaves imported from Africa. This is not to say that slavery was not an atrocity. It was. It was a grotesque atrocity. But if slavery was the source of America's greatness, you want to know where the largest number of African slaves were brought? Brazil. Well, why isn't Brazil what America is today if there was nothing else about America that helped America become who she is? Man, I'm tired of the foolishness. I'm tired of the foolishness. If it was slavery, Brazil would be the dominant superpower in the world, not America. But you know what? There was more to America than slavery. I refer to it as America's original national sin, a grotesque sin. But that's not all America is. But we're living in a day and age where these schools and these television shows and these music artists want to boil America down as if it is exclusively evil and that's all that there is. Do you even know? Why are we on this subject? I was having a conversation with a person and they made the statement and they think they were saying scoring some points talking about colonialism. And I asked the question, are you talking about exclusively European colonialism? Are you also including in your conversation non-Western colonialism? And he looked at me with the Dora blinks. Non-Western colonialism? What are you talking about? Yeah, there were other civilizations that invaded other nations and colonized them too, before the Europeans. In fact, do you even realize, we may know that within the last 500 years or so, that the Europeans were dominant in imperialism, but did you realize that there was an imperialistic pursuit where Europe were the victims? Do you know that? No, we don't know that. We're so busy trying to demonize America and allowing the propagandists that set the foundation for people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to foment her junk, and people buy it up. Interestingly enough, the last African invader of Europe was evacuated was kicked out of Europe the same year that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Genghis Khan and how the Mongols invaded Europe. You don't talk about how the Ottoman Empire invaded Europe. And this is not an apologetic to defend Europe. What I'm telling you is that what the Bible said is true. There is none righteous, no, not one. There is no such thing as having a corner of the market of wickedness based on skin color or ethnicity. But because we are ignorant globally and world history-wise, these false narratives are able to infiltrate our society, infiltrate our normal conversations on a daily basis, to where we have people that harbor these gross prejudices and these gross perceptions of one another. That's all based on a thwarted perception of history, just to create the narratives. And I'm just tired of the foolishness. Yes, America has had horrible sins, just like every other nation in the history of the world. But as I've said repeatedly, when slavery took place, there was nothing unique about slavery. Every civilization in the world was getting slaves. Did you also even know that as the African slave trade took place, that in fact was a slave, for every slave that was sent off into the New World, the Africans kept more slaves for themselves than were ever sent to the New World. So miss me with this garbage. When we talk about slavery, nobody ever spends any amount of time discussing how there were Africans engaged in it for profit. Said I would get to the phones, didn't I? Let's start in Louisiana. Jerome, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It's a blessing. It has me sickening that Americans, most of us we agree with building the wall and getting the wall up. And Bush, when he was in office, they approved it. And now they can't go ahead and continue it and approve it. And it's like, I'm from a different country. I'm a resident, permanent resident. I would take money gladly out of my check, $100, to help build it. And it's sickening that people don't want to approve it in Washington, knowing that we need this wall. Every time you cross a border in the country, there is a checkpoint. And that's why they have borders, so people are so freely to and from with different types of things. Common sense. They need to wake up and just build this wall and give him approval. It's ridiculous.
You're right, Jerome. It is ridiculous. And unfortunately, it's going to take us ringing the phones off the hook, contacting our congressmen and women and telling them, listen, stop the shenanigans, stop the foolishness, and build the barrier, build the wall, and stop acting like you don't know we need it. It's ridiculous. Back to the phone lines we go. We'll stay in my home state of Louisiana, where Robert is on the line. Robert, thank you for calling the Hamilton program. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for taking my call. And like I said, thanks for putting up the fight and putting out the facts out there. And, green energy, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't support itself. Without cheap fossil fuels, you won't have green energy.
Exactly.
Take an electric car for an example. The size of the battery in that electric car, it doesn't last long. And you've got heavy equipment running on fossil fuels, mining these batteries. The batteries don't last long. And then you got to dispose of lead, cadmium batteries, and put all new batteries all the time. If you didn't have diesel engines digging all this lead for the batteries, you wouldn't have the electric cars. It doesn't hold up.
Robert, thank you. Robert, yeah, Robert is preaching. I mean, it's the truth. And because of the time of the show, I didn't have the opportunity to go into all of these details, but he's exactly right. Even comprising the batteries for the electric cars require fossil fuel powered vehicles to put the electric batteries in. Folks, and again, there's nothing inherently wrong with green energy, wind, solar, and all that kind of stuff, but it's just as he said, it's not at the place where it can be monetized. It doesn't mean we shouldn't continue exploration in these areas. It doesn't mean we shouldn't continue pursuing its development, but to say we're going to pursue this and eliminate what we know works, that's a formula of foolishness. Formula of foolishness. Back to the phone lines. We go to Kansas next, where Belinda is on the line. Belinda, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Brother Hamilton, for your show and for standing up what is right in our country. And I have a couple things. One, when will somebody confront this Ortez about the facts and the stuff that she spews out of her mouth that is just so socialistic crap? Sorry. She's just a mess. And also, when are people going to be held responsible for their actions? Pelosi and Schumer both said when Obama was in there that we needed the wall. They gave him $8 billion. Where did that money go?
You are absolutely right, Belinda. You're absolutely right. And first, to your first question, when will anybody hold her accountable? Facts and figures, don't wait on the media to do it. Don't wait on the media to do it because they agree with her positions. And this is why I'm saying that her ideas have to be confronted because people agree with them. You'll be hard-pressed to find a quorum, get a quorum of Democrat voters and ask them what they think about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's ideas and see how many of her ideas they disagree with. Tom Perez told you she's the future. She's just bold or naive. You pick which one it is. I know what I think, but I won't say it. Enough to say what all of them believe. They all believe it. They just are wise enough not to come out and say it right now. To the phone lines. Back to the phone lines. We go next to the great state of Texas, where Rogers is on the line. Rogers, thank you for calling the show. Go right ahead.
Not a problem. I appreciate it, Abraham. Two things. One, I notice when they're talking about the border, they're always going to the towns that don't have as many problems.
Yep.
If anything, go to Laredo, Texas. That's where we have a lot of gang activity and a lot of death, a lot of companies. People don't want to go to Laredo. That's a major border town. And second, when it comes to green energy, when President Obama was talking about it, one of the things I thought was, why don't the federal government be the, what would you call it, the starting of it? Every federal building, go green. Every federal car, go green. And if it works, great, because then they can create jobs and create. If it doesn't work, then we know. But federal government should be the starting point.
Rogers, well said. Very well said. I think you're absolutely right. But they won't do it because they know it won't work. I'll try to squeeze one more caller in there. We'll go next to Arkansas, where Stephen is on the line. Stephen, you have 15 seconds. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Why wouldn't Trump be able to ask for just a little more money and threaten to cut out more of the government and just kind of starve them out?
I hear what you're saying, Stephen. Well, the thing is, he's asking for money, and the Democrats are refusing to give him what he's asking for. And the thing that is utterly ridiculous is this is something that everybody knows we need. We know we can pay for it, but this has become the politics of personality as opposed to policy.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith,
plan of the cross. Close families and even national revival began at home with strong fathers in the faith. Go to the website, read the articles. You're not alone. 1milliondads.com. Lead, or others will.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. Standing alongside the Rio Grande River, President Trump